Hi folks, this is Barry again from Barry's 8-track and classic car radio repair. And the reason I'm wearing pajamas and smoking a cigarette on camera is because for this video I need to let my rebellious side peep through a little bit in response to customers who call me and say, you know, you worked on my machine a couple months ago and now it's eating my tapes. Well, I've got news for everyone here. Never once in history has the 8-track machine been the reason a tape got eaten. It is always either the fault of the tape or the failure of the owner to properly maintain his machine by keeping the capstan clean. To illustrate these points, we're gonna go to I'm going to show you exactly why all this is true, and I'm using a reel-to-reel to demonstrate the basic operation of a tape machine because everything's big and easy to see, and it's easy to make it malfunction just by reaching up and touching a few things. We're going to go into basic explanation of how tape machines operate. Naturally, you've got a supply reel which gives out the tape. This is kept under a small amount of tension so that it doesn't spin freely and let that tape drop and bunch up. You have a take-up reel which which of course collects the tape that's been played, and you have a capstan that rubs against a pressure roller. The capstan is what actually pulls the tape through and determines the actual speed. And so now your take-up reel, it does rotate naturally to take up the tape, but now since depending on the amount of tape that's already on the reel, this reel will have to turn either faster or slower to properly pick up the tape without putting any tension on it. And because of that, the take-up reel is always mounted on a clutch system, which allows the take-up reel to slip as is needed. If the reel needs to turn slowly because it's got a whole bunch of tape on it, then it's going to slip quite a bit in that clutch, but the clutch will still pull it until it wears down so much that it'll stop pulling the reel at all, and that's when a machine starts eating tapes. And so I'm going to demonstrate that right now. Appropriately enough, this is an Akai reel-to-reel with a built-in 8-track player. You can see the track changes there. Thought that would be a nice appropriate machine for Barry's 8-track repair to use as a demonstration model. So we're just going to go ahead and fire this machine up, turn it on, and watch it play. And as you can see, the supply reel is giving the tape out. It goes through a little tension lever, and then it goes across the head to pick up the music, and then it goes to your capstan, which is actually what's pulling the tape through, and then finally it's being taken up by the take-up reel. Now what happens with a reel-to-reel, a cassette player, even a VCR, and right on up to the $100,000 machines that were used in recording studios before everything went digital, all tape machines operate basically the same way. They all require the same stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to simulate this clutch wearing out. I'm just going to reach up and stop this reel from turning, and as you'll see, the capstan is still pulling the tape through, but the take-up reel is not taking it up. So what's going to happen here is the tape spills. Okay, I'm not going to let it spill too much. I do have the safety feature defeated at the moment. Most reel-to-reels, it will actually stop if this happens. I've got that defeated on this machine, so we can watch it actually malfunction. So we're just going to stop the reel. The clutch is wearing out, and the tape is just spilling. And if this were a cassette player or a VCR, the tape would end up inside the machine. Okay, so we're back to normal now. Alrighty, now for the fast forward and rewind functions, there is no clutch. It doesn't need a clutch because it just simply needs to pull the tape without having the capstan as a regulating device. And same thing goes for rewind. There's no clutch action there. Okay, we'll put it back to play, and we'll see that everything's operating nice and sweet until the clutch wears out and stops taking up the excess tape. So now that we've demonstrated that, now we're going to go towards. Wait, let me take a drag off my cigarette because I am being rebellious on this video. And this is in response to all the customers who call me angrily stating that their machine that I worked on is now eating tapes. That's just not the truth. So we're going to continue to prove that by going back to our tape machines. I'm going to turn this off for the moment, and now I have an 8-track. I have an 8-track transport. It's all stripped down so that all we have is what we really need to illustrate my points here. And it's currently not turned on, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it on, and we can watch this motor start pulling the tape through. That is, if I can get the doggone thing to Okay, there we go. Okay, our capstan is turning, pulling the tape through. Now, what's different between an 8-track and a reel-to-reel or a VCR or a cassette player that makes it impossible for an 8-track player to eat a tape? Well, because on an 8-track tape, the pressure roller, which is right here, is part of the tape. The take-up reel is also the supply reel. Now, where's the clutch? Where's the clutch in an 8-track tape? Well, the clutch is actually the fact that 8-track tape is coated with graphite so that it can slip and slide between the layers. It needs to be able to slide between layers, and also it needs to be able to slide on the hub, because again, we're giving out tape from a small diameter object and we're taking it up on a large diameter object, and simple mathematics just tells you that this is a mathematical impossibility. You cannot take up more tape than you're giving out. So what's happening right now, and you can't see it, but this tape is sliding between layers and it's sliding on the hub so that it can be pulled through with the take-up reel pulling at a higher rate than what the tape is giving out. So that's the problem there. That's basically how an 8-track cartridge operates. So now we're gonna switch to our overhead camera so you can see all this stuff close up, and I'll explain exactly what I've been trying to illustrate before, as long as I can find my my overhead camera. Where'd you go? There's our overhead camera. Okay, this is the same 8-track transport that I've just showed you, and now you can see everything up close from above. You see our supply reel giving out the tape. You see our take-up reel taking up the tape at a different rate. And just like with a regular tape player, the tape is being pulled across the playback head so that the music can be picked up, and then it's being pulled by the capstan. So now, why would an 8-track machine eat a tape? There's maybe 3 reasons. The most common reason is that the foil splice has broken. If you don't have your tapes serviced when you buy them, it's not a good idea at all to pick up a bunch of tapes at a yard sale and pop them right into your player, because the adhesive that holds the foil splice on the tape gives way once it hits this sharp turn here. Once it hits this sharp turn right there, that adhesive becomes brittle over the years, and it won't make that turn without breaking. Once that tape breaks, then there's nothing for the take-up reel to take up. The tape's just hanging loose in the machine, and the capstan is just going to pull that tape into the machine, and then next thing you know, it stops playing, and you try to pull the cartridge out, and there's a mile of tape inside the machine. So now we have so that on an 8-track machine, the cartridge actually contains the supply reel, take-up reel, and the clutch that is outboard on a reel-to-reel, a cassette, a VCR, or any other type of tape transport. Now, you might say, but I just had my tape serviced. I sent it to a professional company who specialized in servicing tapes. Okay, that's fine. What they generally do is they will replace the foil splice, and in most cases they will also replace the pressure pad to restore proper contact between the tape and the playback head. But most companies, most customers would not be willing to pay more than, say, $5 per tape to have them repaired, and it's unrealistic to expect a repair service to make sure that there's no slack right here, because there's a delicate balance between having enough slack to work properly but having too much slack so that the tape is not hanging loose in there. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to simulate too much slack in the take-up reel, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this tape with a pair of tweezers so that the take-up reel cannot take it up, but the capstan will still be pulling it through. And here we go. And automatically, you can see right there, we're already starting to spill tape into the cartridge after a split second. See that? Is that cool or what? Do it one more time. And you can see what kind of disaster that can create when there's too much slack between the capstan and the take-up reel. And finally, the third reason that a tape player could eat tapes does occur as a result of the capstan becoming sticky. And what happens is the capstan is sticky, and instead of allowing that tape to pass, it will pull it. Here's your tape going past your capstan, and that capstan can actually grab onto that tape and pull it inside the machine. But that will only happen if your capstan is sticky, and that in turn would only happen if you put a tape in there that has a melted or aged pressure roller that allows its rubber goo residue to get onto the capstan, and that is what would make that tape spill into the machine. So as you can see, there is nothing at all about eating tapes that can be blamed on the machine itself, as long as the owner maintains the machine by keeping the capstan properly cleaned. And now with a cassette, sometimes the customer cannot get to the mechanism, especially with car players that pull the tape down into the unit. Obviously, a VCR, they don't really expect customers to go inside VCRs to clean them. They usually send them out for professional service. A reel-to-reel, yeah, everything's easy to get to. You can clean those. But now an 8-track transport, all you have to do is poke your finger into the tape door, and you can get to your capstan. And there's a couple tricks to keeping the capstan clean. You might wonder, how do I reach back there, with the capstan? Well, the best thing to do is, if the machine has a switch that the tape engages when it gets pushed in to start that capstan turning, if you're able to keep that switch pushed in and let that capstan turn, then you can just take, say, a pencil, tape a piece of cloth to that pencil, to the end of the pencil, and stick that pencil in there with a little bit of rubbing alcohol dripped onto the t-shirt, and the capstan rubbing against the pencil eraser, which is covered by cloth, will clean the capstan. They did at one time make a few capstan cleaner cartridges, but they're not very effective at all. Really, there's no substitute for manual cleaning. Now, so what we've covered so far is that the machine eating a tape is either the result of a foil splice breaking. It could be the result of too much slack between the capstan and the take-up reel, or it could be a sticky capstan. Now, there's one more thing that too much slack in the take-up portion of the tape can cause, and this is pretty easy to illustrate. Naturally, the tape is being pulled in this direction, and you can see that tape makes a pretty sharp turn before it gets back onto the take-up reel. Now, the tape naturally wants to go in this direction. It wants to go straight this way. So without tension on that take-up reel pulling it back into the cartridge, that tape is just going to keep going straight, and it's going to bunch up right there, and that's where you get the accordion effect. When you pull a tape out of your machine and it looks like an accordion, it's got all those little zigzag ripples in it, that's because the tape was pushed this way but was not pulled back into the cartridge by the action of the take-up reel, and that's usually the result of too much slack in the area between the capstan and the take-up reel. So it all basically goes to the fact that the owner either did not maintain the machine properly, or they stuck a bad tape into it. So I'm going to take another drag off my cigarette to reinforce my rebelliousness, and I have now proven why an 8-track machine is never ever the reason an 8-track tape got eaten. It's always bad tapes or improper maintenance. This is Barry's 8-Track Repair. My number is 928-533-9666, and I'm not always in pajamas or smoking a cigarette. If you want to send your machine in for repair, you can also visit my website, barrys8trackrepair.com. That's BARRYS, number 8, trackrepair.com. And one of my websites that's even easier to keep in mind is classiccarradiorepair.com. Thank you very much for watching and listening.